The Vietnamese Butcher. In 2025, an extremely disturbing video began circulating through private Telegram channels. The footage showed a bound Asian man sitting on the floor, while another man wearing a Guy Fawkes mask approached him with a knife. The video later moved into a bathroom, where the victim remained restrained while the masked attacker watched him. Eventually, the attacker returned with a cleaver and brutally killed the man before dismembering his body. The footage became even more disturbing because the attacker appeared to cook and consume parts of the victim. But what made this case different from countless other pieces of disturbing footage on the internet was what happened afterward. The video was initially sold privately. Eventually, someone purchased exclusive access to the footage, only for the entire video to later leak across public Telegram channels. Thousands of people began examining the footage frame by frame. Almost immediately, internet users noticed clues suggesting that the crime had taken place in Vietnam. The footage was reported to Vietnamese authorities, but when there appeared to be no immediate response, online investigators decided to investigate the case themselves. Their biggest breakthrough came from a scene in which the attacker was briefly visible without his mask, partially hidden in the shadows. Combined with other environmental and visual clues, internet sleuths eventually managed to identify both the suspected killer and the victim. Their findings were compiled into an 88-page investigation and published online. Only after the investigation gained widespread attention did Vietnamese authorities make an arrest. The suspect identified by the online investigation was reportedly Don Van Song. The victim was identified as Nguyen Xuan Dat. According to reports surrounding the case, the two men had met through extreme underground communities, and the victim had reportedly expressed a fascination with being decapitated. The internet investigation had correctly identified both men. What began as a disturbing video circulating through private channels had turned into one of the most unusual examples of online investigators helping uncover a real-world crime. Today, the Vietnamese Butcher case remains infamous for both the brutality of the crime and the extraordinary investigation that followed. Dr. Gloves. In the 2000s, a series of disturbing images began circulating across 4chan and various underground gore forums. The photographs showed a masked man posing beside the bodies of stillborn and miscarried fetuses. But some of the images were even more disturbing. Several photographs appeared to show living children. Most of them appeared severely disabled or unresponsive. However, one little girl wearing a pink shirt appeared to be walking around normally. The masked man seemed particularly interested in photographing himself with her. Some online investigators even speculated that she could have been related to him. The photographs immediately triggered an internet investigation. The person who originally uploaded them reportedly used the name Master, but because the man almost always wore long medical gloves, online communities eventually gave him a new nickname, Dr. Gloves. Investigators attempted to determine who he was using every available clue. Based on the photographs, they estimated that he was likely a white male somewhere between his 30s and 40s. The medical environment visible in some of the images led many people to believe that he worked in healthcare. Some theories suggested that he could have been a hospital worker or even someone involved in handling deceased infants. But the presence of living children made the situation far more complicated. Investigators also examined mundane details in the photographs. Electrical outlets and other environmental clues appeared to suggest that the images had been taken somewhere in the United States or Canada. Then came one of the biggest breakthroughs. One photograph appeared to contain an identification badge. The name visible on the badge was Edwin Baluyot. It wasn't enough to conclusively prove that Baluyot was Dr. Gloves, but it was by far the strongest lead investigators had discovered. Online users reportedly sent their findings to the FBI. However, according to accounts surrounding the case, authorities did not consider the available material sufficient to take action. And after that, the investigation went cold. Despite years of online speculation, Dr. Gloves has never been conclusively identified. The photographs remain one of the internet's most disturbing unsolved mysteries. Mr. Swirl. In the early 2000s, German authorities discovered a hard drive inside a forgotten storage unit. At first glance, it appeared to contain ordinary photographs. There were pictures of food, landscapes, and locations across Southeast Asia, but hidden among them were extremely disturbing images involving children. The photographs appeared to have been taken inside abandoned buildings. And there was something particularly strange about the person behind the camera. He hadn't completely hidden his face. Instead, he had used image editing software to distort it into a bizarre swirling pattern. The effect became his signature, and eventually the internet gave him a name, Mr. Swirl. In 2004, Interpol launched an international investigation known as Operation Vico. Investigators faced an unusual challenge. They had photographs of the suspect, but his face had been deliberately distorted. The goal was to somehow reverse the effect and recover the original image. At the same time, investigators analyzed the backgrounds of the photographs, hoping to determine where they had been taken. But the images appeared to span multiple countries, making the investigation extremely difficult. Then investigators discovered something even more disturbing. Photographs featuring the same distinctive swirl effect were appearing across underground forums. The person investigators were looking for appeared to have uploaded hundreds of images himself. He wasn't simply hiding from authorities. He was apparently distributing his own material across the internet. The key to identifying him was hidden inside the distortion itself. Unlike traditional blurring, a swirl effect can rearrange pixels without completely destroying the underlying information. With enough forensic analysis, investigators were eventually able to reconstruct the face underneath. The man was identified as Christopher Paul Neal, a Canadian national who had been traveling through Asia. In 2007, Neal was arrested in Thailand. The international manhunt had finally come to an end. The case became one of the most famous examples of digital image forensics being used to identify a criminal. The Chinese Lab. In February 2022, a Chinese urban explorer uploaded a strange video to Douyin, the Chinese version of TikTok. He claimed to have discovered an abandoned location somewhere in rural China. From the outside, it looked like an old hospital or laboratory. But when he made his way down into the basement, he came across something horrifying. Inside a large pool were what appeared to be the bodies of children. At the beginning of the video, the blogger insisted that they were only models or movie props. But viewers weren't convinced. Everything looked far too realistic. Nearly a year later, the explorer returned to the same location, and this time, what he discovered made the situation even more disturbing. The remains inside the pool appeared to show obvious signs of natural decomposition. He also discovered medical equipment scattered throughout the laboratory, along with a glass jar containing what appeared to be a human embryo. Then, shortly afterward, his account was banned. When it was eventually restored, the videos had disappeared. And strangely, the blogger never spoke about the incident again. The footage sparked massive controversy, both in China and around the world. Some people speculated that the location could have been connected to the darker consequences of China's one-child policy, which remained in place until 2015. Others suggested that it could somehow be connected to the black market organ trade. There were plenty of other theories too, but none of them could definitively explain what this mysterious place actually was. Disney's website. In the mid-1990s, a user named Kevin TX created a website called paranoia.com. The site was extremely simple, but its purpose was clear. It was supposed to be a place for absolute free speech, where users could post almost anything they wanted, and it quickly became surprisingly popular. Thousands of people began using paranoia.com to share their thoughts, personal journals, strange hobbies, and obscure interests. It became a home for ordinary internet users, as well as some of the stranger subcultures emerging on the early web. But that complete lack of moderation also had a very dark side. The website hosted disturbing adult content, along with early pages created by groups that promoted what they called pedophile pride. Today, surviving archives of the site offer a disturbing glimpse into what the completely unfiltered internet looked like during its early years. By the late 1990s, however, the project was dying. Kevin TX wasn't making enough money from the website, and keeping it online had become too expensive. Eventually, paranoia.com was shut down, but shortly afterward, visitors noticed something incredibly strange. If you entered paranoia.com into your browser instead of reaching a dead website, you were automatically redirected to disney.com. Naturally, people became curious. What could a disturbing website filled with controversial and borderline illegal content possibly have to do with Disney? People even contacted Disney directly to ask why paranoia.com was redirecting to its homepage. Disney never gave them an answer. Eventually, however, the real explanation turned out to be far less mysterious, but still fascinating. In 2000, Fox Family Channel launched an interactive television game show called Paranoia. The show was a new concept for its time, allowing viewers to participate live through the internet using a partnership with the web portal Excite. To support the show, Excite acquired the paranoia.com domain. But that still left one major question. Where did Disney come into the picture? The missing piece appeared just 1 year later. In 2001, Disney acquired Fox Family Worldwide in a massive deal. And along with the television network itself, Disney inherited its digital assets and web domains, including paranoia.com.